So I've done this before. I'm doing it again. 31 surprises on 31 teams. Now, I've tried not to pick the same guys for all the teams that I did before. And for anybody who's saying about my review video tonight, hey, you didn't talk about some of the other stuff that happened tonight. Yeah, I'm saving some of that for this video. So the teams are listed by the alphabetical order according to the site and according to the abbreviations. And for some reason, Carolina shows up ahead of Calgary, so it's CGY and CAR. I don't know. For me, it's still a surprise to see Andrew Cogliano with 11 points in 17 games. He's scoring a lot of points for Andrew Cogliano. He's still, I think, third in team scoring. Raquel's now passed him. Raquel's first. Tobias Reeder, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points in 19 games. That still stands out for me. That still stands out as a very low total for Reeder. And Matt Bolesky in Boston, 12 games, 0 points. Bolesky has evolved into a almost enforcer type in Boston. He's involved in almost every scrum. He does a lot of late checks. He's borderline dirty at this point. He's not. I don't think he's what they thought they were getting as a free agent a couple years ago. Kyle Okposo in Buffalo, 15 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. So while people are going to point the finger at Jack Eichel because Eichel's the lightning rod for everything Buffalo, and Sam Reinhart as well, Okposo isn't putting up the totals he's supposed to either. Now, this is where I tell you guys, yes, I know that putting up the points doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story, but at the end of the year, it's what gets a guy paid, and it's what makes a GM decide whether or not to keep a player. If somebody's doing well in advanced stats but not with regular stats, it doesn't save their job. I think of Cody Franzen is a good example as a guy who is very, very good, and yet for some reason doesn't get signed as a free agent until very late in the summer, and in Chicago's case, they got him on a PTO. That's just how it is. GMs are still going by this old-fashioned statistical category, points and goals. Feels weird to say that. Okay, so Calgary, Johnny Gaudreau, 17 games, 7 goals, 17 assists, 24 points. Obviously, he's not going to get 82 assists this year, but Johnny Hockey is playing the best hockey of his career. And I mentioned it in a video tonight about them beating St. Louis 7-4. He got points there. He wasn't the main reason they won, but he's still scoring a lot of points. And at this stage, it'd be hard to argue against him for a Hart Trophy nomination. He's playing very well. So I qualify him as a surprise because I had not anticipated a season where he could score over 100 points. I had Aho as the guy I was going to talk about from Carolina, but Teravainen with a hat trick. So I will give him props. 16 games now, 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points. This is the Teravainen that Chicago drafted. This is the Teravainen who was supposed to be a steal of the draft. And this is the Teravainen that Carolina stole from Chicago. And it's starting to show. I thought Kruger had a decent game tonight too, but he doesn't have point totals worthy of being in here as a surprise other than for the fact that I think he's only got 2 assists. Teravainen is a positive, and he's been really good. And honestly, if his goal scoring is going to round into form, and if he's going to be a 25-30 goal scorer, Carolina's that much further ahead in terms of being able to make the playoffs this year. In Chicago, the surprise for me now is Brandon Saad. He got off to kind of a hot start. He's now got 18 games, 7 goals, 3 assists, 10 points. Those are respectable totals. He's on pace for 30 goals. But on pace for doesn't tell the story. He's fallen off offensively. A lot of Chicago players have fallen off offensively. And now that their goaltending has started to look kind of if you're a Chicago fan, you got to be worried. And there's a video coming on Chicago. Trust me. Because, there's some stuff going on with Chicago that could possibly cost them the playoffs. I really think, and I thought at the time the Panarin deal was iffy. And right now, it doesn't look like it's benefited Panarin, and it doesn't look like it's benefited Chicago very much either. They got that initial hot streak at the start of the year. I think they were 4-1 in their first 5 games. But clearly it wasn't sustainable. Whether or not they can get it back, we'll see. In Colorado, I'll do Colorado first. Again, some of these are listed out of order for what is actually alphabetical because that's how they were listed on the site. For Colorado, Kerfoot, 16 games, 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points. He wasn't supposed to be this good. He wasn't supposed to be this good. That wasn't supposed to happen. Much like Will Butcher with 13 assists in 17 games, he wasn't supposed to be putting up those kinds of totals either for New Jersey. So it's been a good trade. Remember, one was drafted by one was drafted by the other. They both went unrestricted, and they signed with each other's teams. So Kerfoot for Butcher has been to the benefit of both teams. And Kerfoot, in the 2 games I watched between Colorado and Ottawa on the weekend, he impressed me. I thought he played very, very well. So the Avs may very well miss the playoffs again, but Kerfoot's a good building piece for them for the future. In Columbus, Nick Foligno stands out to me. 18 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Columbus has started to slide. And if Foligno's going to score on a 15-goal pace, that's not going to help. Nick Foligno is not a superstar scorer, but he needs to be about 60 points for Columbus to maintain the spot they had last year, because their offense is geared around basically scoring by committee. There is no big number one center, so they need guys like Foligno to step it up. I know Foligno can, but right now he hasn't offensively. Dallas, John Klingberg, 17 games, 4 goals, 14 assists, 18 points. He didn't score tonight, so I had him here with 18 points in 16 games. Now he's got 18 points in 17, but it's still a surprise. Klingberg is suspect defensively, but he's fantastic offensively. So you live with the odd defensive miscue here and there. You hope Mathot can cover for him. And Klingberg brings the offense, which makes up for the fact that Mathot brings no offense. None. Martin Ferk in Detroit. Remember when Ferk got waived twice last year? It happened. This year he's got 18 games, 6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points. I was kind of surprised that he didn't come up sooner. I liked Ferk since he was in juniors. I couldn't understand why he wasn't making the team or what was going on with him, but clearly he's got it straightened out right now. And he's on pace for about 25 goals. So, no harm, no foul. Ferk's back where he started, and he's playing very, very well for the Wings. Edmonton, Zach Kassian, 17 games, 2 assists. I know he's not counted on for offense, but he's on pace for 8 points. 8. Florida, Trocheck, 16 games, 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points. I could have picked anybody here. I could have picked Huberdeau. I could have picked Dadonov. I could even have picked Ekblad potentially for the fact that he's bounced right back this year offensively. But Trocheck stands out for me because I don't see Trocheck as a point-a-game guy. I can see Huberdeau that way. I could see Dadonov to some extent that way based on scouting reports and whatnot. I am surprised by Trocheck. I'm genuinely surprised by Trocheck. And before anybody asks, Barkov doesn't surprise me by being point a game. Barkov is likely, as long as he stays healthy this year, he'll get nominated for a Selke, and he could win it. He could win it. For me, LA, Dustin Brown, 17 points in 17 games is stunning, considering Brown was, dead and gone this year. I didn't... In any magazine I have where they talk about fantasy totals, Brown's not even mentioned. So the fact that he's got 17 points in 17 games is just awesome. Minnesota, Eriksson Ek surprises me. There's a qualifier here, though. So as a rookie, he's played 16 games. He's got 1 goal, 2 assists. But he's only got 12 minutes and 52 seconds of ice time per game. So it's worthy of note that he's not playing a lot of time. I had expected Eriksson Ek to be one of the higher scoring rookies this year. There's still time for that to happen, but right now he's not there. Montreal, I poured over Montreal's roster. Shaw, to some extent, surprises me that he started scoring the way he has, but Shaw's always been kind of hot and cold. Galchenyuk still surprises me with 4 goals, 2 assists in 18 games. I know he's not getting the ice time either, but it still surprises me that he hasn't become what he was supposed to be. He really hasn't. In Nashville, Forsberg surprises me with 16 points in 16 games because Forsberg's never been point a game before. So I don't know if he keeps it up, but he's been pretty consistent so far this year. And if Forsberg can put up 82 points, Nashville could be really deadly because Turris is going to put up over 60. And you've got Arvidsson on pace for 30 goals. I mean, Nashville could have a very solid, explosive offense this year. Peter Laviolette should be a very happy coach by season's end. The big surprise in Jersey right now, and I thought about Butcher, but Gibbons. Gibbons with 8 goals in 17 games and 11 points. Jersey fans were on me about not talking about Gibbons earlier in the season. I will say this, Gibbons is putting up goals at an alarming pace, as if he's looking at what Furland and Dorsett are doing and saying, I can do that. There are some surprising goal scorers in the NHL this year. Very, very surprising. And Gibbons is one of the biggest surprises. With the Islanders, the biggest surprise I can come up with is still Bailey, with 17 games, 3 goals, 15 assists, 18 points. I know he's riding the coattails of John Tavares. He's doing it very, very well. And he's going to get a big payday at the end of the year. And it's one of those situations where you wonder, is he going to give some of that money to Tavares and say, thanks for all this money? No, but, I wouldn't blame him for thinking about it. In New York, I thought about Zibanejad, but I've talked about Zibanejad before. He's still at a point a game. He's playing fantastic. Chris Kreider, to me, is a surprise with 5 goals, 3 assists in 18 games. I'd expected higher point totals out of him. I know Kreider's never going to be, one of the top point scorers in the NHL, but I really thought Kreider offensively would be further along than he is right now. And I'm probably just expecting too much from him. Ottawa. How about Mark Stone? So he's got 16 games, 12 goals, 7 assists, 19 points. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this year. So Ottawa, a team which has in the past had issues with players asking for a lot of money in term, they've got Erik Karlsson up next year. They got Matt Duchene up next year. They got Mark Stone up this year. There could be some major headaches for Senators fans upcoming. We'll see. Stone's 12 goals in 16 games is intimidating. He's on pace for 60 goals. He knows as well as you and I that he is due for a raise this summer. And he's going to get that raise. And depending on how well he plays from here, it could be a substantial raise. Philly, speaking of raises, Sean Couturier, 17 games, 10 goals, 9 assists, 19 points. It's a very solid year for Sean Couturier. I get asked in live streams what I think about Couturier. I've always liked Couturier's defensive game. I've always thought he was good on special teams. And now he's just good overall. I always had wondered if maybe it was just a matter of him being stuck third line, sometimes fourth line, and if just he wasn't getting the proper opportunity in Philly. I'd even started to wonder if maybe he needed to be moved out of Philly to get that opportunity. I'm glad that he didn't have to wait. Pittsburgh. Sid. So I've been asked to do a video as well on Sid. Sidney Crosby, what's going on? He hasn't scored a goal in 10 or 11 games, whatever it is. He's got 13 points in 19 games right now. He's on pace for roughly 50 points. He has a plus-minus of minus 14, and he has 13 points. These totals, by any measure, are abysmal. If I showed those totals and covered the name of the player, almost anybody would say that's awful. And even though plus-minus is a stat that people don't like to use, it still shows you something about a player's defensive play, or at the very least, how well their line is or isn't playing. And in Crosby's case, either he's with really poor line mates for him and for what he's trying to do, or he's just playing really badly. And I'm not sure which one it is. But they have to figure this out now, because it's November. Don't wait around until March when it's too late. In San Jose, the surprise for me is Joe Pavelski with 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points in 16 games. Pedestrian for Pavelski. I expect him to pick it up. Those totals are surprisingly low. There's a funny one here. For St. Louis, the one that I found that I thought was underperforming came through tonight. Coming into tonight's game, he had 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points in 12 games. Well, Steen got a goal and an assist tonight, so Alex Steen now sits with 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points in 13 games, and I have a hard time finding somebody who's under or overachieving in St. Louis. Tarasenko, though, reaches 10 goals tonight, and I really still think he's going to be a 50-goal scorer. I think he's just fantastic. I think he's got such a deadly shot. I really still think there's a 50-goal scorer there. In Tampa, Vlad Nemesnikov, also known as the luckiest man in the NHL. He has to stand between Stamkos and Kucherov. So he has 19 points in 18 games. He's in that Brendan Morrison position of, I get to just pass it off to two of the best shooters in the game. I don't know how long this lasts for Nemesnikov, but it's not that long ago that he was potentially going to be exposed in the expansion draft. That was the rumor not that long ago, and now very clearly Steve Yzerman's a very lucky man to not have had to worry about the expansion draft, to not have had to worry about the like, we keep waiting for the salary cap to bite him in the ass, and it just hasn't yet. So if Nemesnikov puts up over 80 points, it could bite him pretty quick. Toronto. So at the start of the year, Marner gets off to a slow start. I state that I like Marner. I also did a video where I stated my I believe it's top 20 players under the age of 25 in the NHL, or under the age of 24 in the NHL. 23 and under, I think it was. And I had Marner in there, and I didn't have Nylander. And Toronto fans right away were like, "You're just crazy. Nylander's fantastic. You don't know what you're talking about." I stand by that. And Nylander right now has 3 goals in 19 games. Being called out by the coach. A lot of rumblings about whether or not he's happy, whether or not the team's happy with him. 13 points in 19 games would be fine for almost anybody else. But if Nylander ends up getting 12 goals and 50 points, you guys won't have to worry in Toronto about giving him a big raise, because he's not going to earn it. The first thing I thought of today when I looked at the stats was, well, all of this talk about how Marner, Nylander, and Matthews will break the bank when their ELCs are up, I don't think you're going to have to worry, because their totals right now aren't great. Matthews is fantastic. He'll get his $12 million. But the idea that Nylander and Marner will command $7, $8, $9 million, not with these totals, they won't. No chance. In Vancouver, I'm very surprised Marcus Granlund is not scoring more. And I debated about him or Brandon Sutter. Brandon Sutter only has a goal. Marcus Granlund has 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in 16 games. And I thought about Sam Gagner too. There's so many players in Vancouver who are not scoring. Vancouver won't go anywhere without goal scoring. And right now, there's not enough depth to scoring on the team. Right now, if you're facing the Canucks, all you have to do is shut down Horvat, Besser, and Berchi, and then basically challenge the rest of the team to beat you. And they're not going to. They just don't have the depth to scoring. I could have had Vanek as a surprise because he's got 5 goals, but really, for the money they're paying him and for the fact he's Thomas Vanek, he should be a 20-goal season player. And he's going to be a good rental at the deadline for somebody. David Perron, 14 points in 16 games for Vegas. That's not bad for a cast-off. Not bad for a guy who nobody paid a lot of attention to before the season. And a pickup that I really, really liked when I did my fake expansion draft, where I said, here's who I would pick out of the protected lists. The fact that he was exposed was kind of surprising to me, and to me, Perron was an automatic. Like, oh yeah, I would take David Perron. And with 14 points in 16 games, I'd be very surprised if Vegas doesn't keep him. They have lots of cap space. Why not keep him? He's scoring at a 70-point pace. Keep him. Washington. I'm going to go back to Orlov. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. I know he had a goal the other night, and he's been playing well, but he had 33 points last year, and he has a $5.1 million cap hit. If Orlov ends up scoring 12 points this year, and if he ends up with 4 goals to go with those 12 points, that cap hit looks awful. It just looks terrible. And for a team like Washington, who has lost some pretty decent players because they can't manage the cap, this is another example of a player getting too much money, too much term, and the Capitals are really paying for it. So again, while I can appreciate that Orlov may be doing things defensively that don't show up on the score sheet, they're not paying him $5 million a year for that. If they wanted to just have the defense and no offense, they could have kept Alzner and let Orlov go and traded Orlov out. So They signed him for $5.1 million a year, anticipating another 35-point season on the blue line, at least equaling the 33. I would imagine, and 18 games into the year is just not acceptable. And on a happy note, I'm going to end with this. In Winnipeg, it's Blake Wheeler. 16 games, 5 goals, 18 assists, 23 points. Another crazy assist total. Blake Wheeler is greatly underestimated by a lot of people, including me. I've talked about Blake Wheeler and how he's okay. He's not great. He's okay. Well, he's on pace for 115 points this year. Is he going to get 115? No. I'm not crazy. I know he's not going to hit 115 points, but he's had a fantastic start to the season. And it is worth acknowledging, because while Scheifele's going to get all the attention, while Scheifele's going to get the headlines, and anytime Laine gets a goal, people are going to go nuts. And he's back up. He's at 9 goals right now. So Patrick Laine, despite all the critiquing he took at the start of the year, he's on pace for 40 goals. It's not bad. Not bad for a guy that just a couple weeks ago I heard people saying, oh, he's a flop, or he's a bust, or he's a sophomore bust, or however they were putting it. He's played pretty well lately. Winnipeg offensively is deadly. We knew they were going to be deadly offensively. It was the defense and the goaltending that were And while Hellebuck has shown some cracks in the last couple of games, as long as he can iron those out, I tell you, Winnipeg is a threat. They're a legitimate threat. And it's because guys like Blake Wheeler are just flying under the radar right in front of our eyes. And there are other players flying under our radar right in front of our eyes, like a Trocheck, like Gaudreau in Calgary. And now, Teravainen's showing signs that he's coming to life and he's ready to start scoring the way he was supposed to when he was drafted in the first round. Remember, Chicago's first-round draft picks are always steals. That's the way it was always placed and discussed, and I agreed. And maybe he was, and maybe he's a steal for the Hurricanes. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. That's my 31 players, 31 teams, and I even threw in a couple extras just to try to get as many guys in there as I could. Let me know your picks for who you're surprised by having a good start or a poor start. We're about a quarter of the way into the season, so the idea that, this is just a flash in the pan, or this is just a little bit of a slump, it's kind of late for that now. Although with Sidney Crosby, he can just go on a tear of 20 points in 10 games and pretty much wipe out anybody's memory of this slow start he's on. But we'll see, right? He's in his 30s now, and at some point, he's going to start to drop. So, is this his time? I will look into that. I will do a video on that. From now until then, though, that's it from me for tonight. Thank you for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I will talk to you again very soon.